For most of my life, I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I thought and would loudly proclaim that I was part of the most ethical, moral organization in the entire world. We even had talks like this one.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word dishonesty? Maybe you think of Satan, the father of the lie. Or Ananias and his wife comes to your mind. They lost their lives because of lying. We do not want to imitate such ones. We avoid lying. Is that, though, as far as our honesty goes? Our holy God Jehovah wants us to be holy as well, and that is why he urged the ancient Israelites not to deceive others, as mentioned in Leviticus 19, verse 11.
Yes, they equate lying and deception with the worst thing in the entire universe, Satan, the devil. It's unimaginable. Oh, you can't lie, you can't deceive people. You're going to be in line with the father of the lie, Satan himself. And if you've ever been a Jehovah's Witness, you'll know that they refer to their entire religion as the truth. They're always talking about it as, hey, how long have you been in the truth? That means, how long have you been a Jehovah's Witness? So you can imagine my surprise when I found out that a court in Montana had ordered the head of their legal department to pay $150,000 because he lied and deceived them. Boy howdy, we got a whopper today. Welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we are looking at Philip Brumley. Yes, the legal head of Watchtower for longer than I have even been alive, lied to a court in Montana in regard to a case talking about CSA. Before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see further videos like this. With all of that being said, let's get into exactly what was said and why it was wrong and breaking the whole thing down. Let's do it.
Throughout the 196-page decision, the court meticulously dismantles the lies that Russia has used to persecute our brothers and ban our worship. The court meticulously dismantles the lies.
Let's take a quick look at this affidavit and see exactly what was misleading and how Philip Brumley was lying to the state of Montana. So you can see this is an affidavit of Philip Brumley. We'll just scroll down here just a little bit. He's just talking about a few formality things. WTPA, that is the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania. We'll just start here in number 6. Watchtower is not the direct or indirect parent or subsidiary of any other corporation involved in this action. Watchtower does not have and never has had offices in Montana, does not own assets in Montana, and does not have employees in Montana. Watchtower does not conduct business in Montana and is not and never has been registered to carry on business in Montana. Watchtower has no agent for service of process in Montana. Watchtower has no contact with congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses located in Montana. And Watchtower does not establish or disseminate policy or procedure to congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses in Montana. Now, we know that this is Watchtower's go-to response whenever they are in legal trouble. They have, like, over 1,000 corporations in the United States, and they basically just say, well, no, that's a separate corporation. You'll have to go to them. And they try and do this weird legal chicanery. It's kind of like money laundering or something. Like, no one knows where the money's coming from. No one knows where these policies come from. But the Montana court, they actually did their homework. Shout outs to Mark O'Donnell for helping the plaintiffs in this case because he was providing them with some of the historical background to really expose why all of this was just a load of stinky barnacles. And it's very important because Watchtower shouldn't be allowed to just lie and say, well, we don't disseminate policy in Montana. We don't own assets. I mean, sure, we can tell elders exactly what to do and when to do it. Sure, we can take over the ownership of kingdom halls and sell them off whenever we see fit, but that's a separate corporation. That has nothing to do with us. So I just wanted to pull up a couple of different examples, just really highlighting and demonstrating why this is just some smelly horseradish. So right here is a letter from 1995, and we won't read the entire thing, but notice where it was issued from. It's the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, the one that doesn't disseminate information to congregations. And it says, to all bodies of elders, dear brothers, and then it goes and talks about, in really annoying pedantic detail, some tedious thing about Gilead applications and special pioneers and that. But a clear example that in the past Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania was giving instructions to elders, to all bodies of elders in the United States. And this is relevant because they don't necessarily do that now. And what Philip Brumley was trying to do was mischaracterize the relationship between how Watchtower functions now, because they've gotten a little bit smarter at protecting themselves legally, but the relevance in this case was in the past. So how did Watchtower operate back then? And remember, he has been the head of their legal department for longer than I've been alive. So he was the head of the legal department. He would have had intimate knowledge that this is how the organization worked back during this time period. And yet he mischaracterized it by saying, well, we don't disseminate policy. We don't do anything. But clearly they were able to gain access to this instruction directly from the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania that would go out to all elders. So yeah, that was just a bunch of baloney. Now you guys know I like to quote Garrett Loesch, who said, I've never been a member of Watchtower. I don't have any control over Watchtower, and Watchtower has no authority over me. And people almost invariably in the comments when I bring that up will say, well, technically, Wally, you know that's actually true because, you know, logistically speaking or legally speaking, he isn't a member of Watchtower. Okay, whatever. Well, check this letter out because I think it is very relevant to what we're talking about here. This is the Watchtower Society Australia, and it says this. Dear brothers, this is further on your letter, AB February 19th, 1997. Now remember, Garrett Loesch was appointed to the governing body in 1995. So this was in 1997, in which you asked for guidance in handling cases where baptized witnesses were accused of child abuse or where child abusers wish to become baptized witnesses. Last week, the publishing committee sent you a brief letter explaining the policy on seeking to preserve clergy confidentiality in legal cases involving this problem. However, there were other questions that you asked, particularly in view of the information in the article, Let Us Abhor What Is Wicked in the January 1st, 1997 issue of the Watchtower. For your information, the governing body is in the process of studying the way the scriptural principles in that article can be implemented by congregation elders. When the investigation is complete, it is likely that a letter will be sent to the bodies of elders to help them handle things wisely. We believe that such a letter would answer most of the questions in your letter. If the governing body decides not to write a letter about this to congregations, we will send you additional information when the study by the governing body is completed. So, you have a global organization. Now you have Watchtower Australia asking, hey, we need help clarifying this. And the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, Watchtower, says, Well, the governing body are the ones that are working on investigating this and seeing how the scriptures can be implemented better. And, you can await a letter from them. So you have governing body controlling Watchtower, Watchtower controlling the branch offices around the world, the branch offices controlling the congregations, and the congregations controlling the elders. It's a pyramid. Now, I don't want this to become too tedious, and yes, we'll move on to the sanctions and what the court said, but I did want to just point out one other thing, because I think it is one of the funniest examples of how delusional Watchtower is in thinking they can get away with tricking the court by saying, well, we, the governing body, we, the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania, we have nothing to do with disseminating any instructions to congregations. So this is taken from the, who was this guy? He was the Assistant Secretary Treasurer of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York, and this was in a affidavit filed in February of 1986. And in there he says, "It is the teaching and practice of Jehovah's Witnesses to follow the example of first century Christians. A governing body, at present comprised of 13 men, direct all teaching, preaching, disciple-making, and congregational activities of Jehovah's Witnesses throughout the world." And then they quote, "organized to do their will. Regarding the position of the governing body, organized to accomplish our ministry, states at page 28, all in the organization recognize God's way of theocratic control. The congregations acknowledge and conform to the guidance of the governing body as it outlines organizational arrangement for the benefit of all. To implement their decisions, the governing body uses a hierarchical organization together with corporate entities, when appropriate, to accomplish its worldwide work of teaching and declaring the good news of God's established kingdom. The principal corporation used by the governing body is the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania." Boy, howdy, you can't make this stuff up. You actually can't make this up. They are a bunch of lying pieces of garbage when it comes to just going and being honest. Hey, how is the organization run? Who runs the organization? Who's the one that makes the policies? These are questions that should be very easy to answer, especially if you're the head of a legal department of this organization for over 30 years. And yet they throw honesty out the window. They just say, that sounds pretty boring. It's time to live the high life, live on the wild side, and try and skirt the line between truth and honesty, because we don't want to answer for our crimes against humanity and how we don't protect children. It is absolutely deplorable, and anyone that has left the organization, I shake your hand, I congratulate you, you absolutely made the right decision. This is a group of a bunch of goobers that will do anything to shield themselves from the law, and will always tell people that they need to boldly stand up before the courts, boldly take their stand for Jehovah, even throw their life away and go to prison, or lose their life directly because of the rules that they come up with. And yet, when it's their turn to go on the old barbecue, what do? Well, that doesn't sound reasonable. Watchtower doesn't have any policies in Montana. It's preposterous. Now, let's look at the plaintiff's motion for sanctions, because the language they use is, to me, almost like irritated. The person that was typing this out sounds genuinely annoyed at how ridiculous Watchtower is and how delusional they are in thinking that for a second that they could possibly get away with this sort of nonsense. So in the introduction, it says, From this case's inception, Watchtower and Bible Tract Society of Pennsylvania, I'm just going to call them Watchtower, and its lawyers were uniquely in possession of the facts and knowledge establishing that it should be subject to personal jurisdiction in Montana. Rather than honestly acknowledging those facts, Watchtower had its in-house counsel put forth a false and intentionally misleading version of Watchtower's role in the Jehovah's Witness organization, with the hope that the court would rely on it to dismiss plaintiffs' cases. Watchtower then objected to and obstructed plaintiffs' discovery that would ultimately expose that false narrative. When confronted with Rule 11 penalties, only when confronted with Rule 11 penalties did Watchtower agree to withdraw its frivolous motion. The result was 17 months of wasted litigation. Plaintiffs submit that this is sanctionable conduct and that the court has the authority to sanction attorneys Brumley and Taylor. Yeah, you can see that they're really not too happy about having to go through a 17-month nonsense bunch of baloney in order to just get the answer to very simple questions that the attorneys could have and should have answered honestly. And in the next section, they talk about these questions. Questions unanswered by Watchtower's response. Watchtower filed a 20-page response brief offering no explanation to the most fundamental questions. Why did Brumley tell the court that Watchtower did not establish or disseminate policy or procedure to congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses in Montana when Watchtower's books did exactly that? Why did Brumley and Watchtower provide the court an intentionally misleading version of Watchtower's activities while simultaneously attempting to prevent the plaintiffs from discovering the truth? Why didn't Watchtower withdraw its motion in August of 2021 before forcing plaintiffs to spend hundreds of more hours marshaling and briefing the extensive evidence obtained in discovery? And why did Watchtower file a frivolous motion without a good faith factual basis in the first place? Watchtower offers no answers for these crucial questions. Yeah, they are getting absolutely blasted here, just completely demolished, and for good reason. Watchtower shouldn't have the status within the public eye that they do, as, acting in good faith, a religious community that's based on, the biblical principles and trying to be honest and all of the crap that they put out there. They need to be exposed for the lying little worms that they are. And this was the biggest wormy thing I've ever seen Watchtower do personally. I mean, I'm spitballing here. Maybe there is some others that I've seen, but it's absolutely ridiculous to think for 1 second that they were going to get away with this. And in that language, you see, it was an attempt to mislead the court. It was an intentional attempt at deception. And I always come back to this. For what reason? What was the reason that they are making this intentional deception? It's because they refuse or don't want to acknowledge the fact that their policies have directly affected children, and they have shown a lack of interest and intention of protecting children. It's as simple as that. Step one of a civilized society. We protect kids. It's not a brain blaster here. We protect children. We do what we can to make sure they have an environment for growth and prosperity. And Watchtower didn't do that. And they fail to acknowledge the damage that they've done to people. And it's that failure to acknowledge that you've done anything wrong that is the most frustrating. When you sit there on your little throne and say, no, we are, doing life-saving work. Don't you know? We are giving people the truth. We are helping the community. We are building up families. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You sound crazy right now. We haven't contributed anything in order, we haven't done anything that could harm or potentially harm children. And it's simply not true. And in order to get out of that, they will lie. It's like dealing with a narcissist. It's unimaginably frustrating. And when you see how, I mean, I won't go through this entire thing, but I will put some links in the description of this video if you do want to go over all of the details yourself. You definitely can, but we won't make this like a 2-hour long video of me just going over point by point by point. But I just find it amazing and great that the Montana courts didn't allow them to get away with this. They said enough is enough, you bunch of bozos, and pay up, because all of the wasted time, 17 months of frivolous litigation, because you are incapable of understanding that you are the one at fault here. And I think that is absolutely great. So hats off to Montana, hats off to all of the people that have been helping the plaintiffs in this case behind the scenes, giving them, access to these various elders' letters, these various things that came out of the branch, all of the work that went behind the scenes. So shout outs to everyone that did that. I am just some idiot on YouTube that's talking about it, but there were a lot of people that were doing the hard work behind the scenes. So shout outs to all of them. And with all of that being said, if you're still around, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to smile. And knowing that Philip Brumley, the evil mastermind behind the legal department of Watchtower for over 3 decades, is getting called out for lying to courts, that is enough to make sure that you have a good-ass day.